Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time when we'll talk about malaria. Not nearly as bad as it sounds. Most people survive it.
I've had the pleasure of plunking some time into a review build of We Happy Few, and I've got some thoughts in motion. I haven't played enough to go into full review territory, but a good chunk into the meat of Arthur's story, I have some thoughts and feelings on the game so far. First off, I'd like to state that I haven't followed the state of the game all too closely since it went into early access or anything. I watched the first couple of trailers, got excited, and then sort of faded it out as I found out subsequent demos were only going to focus on the non-story aspects of the game, like survival and exploration through procedural worlds. Where We Happy Few sinks its teeth in are with its world building and immersion into its dystopic utopic fusion, from its witty and oh-so-British quips and character interactions to its genuine aura of mystery and mechanisms of an alien-feeling society, in which psychoactive drug use is the bedrock. So far, I'm rather invested in protagonist Arthur and his memories of his relationship with his brother Percy. Although simplistic, audio-only flashbacks for the most part, their conversations as children are convincing and paint the world and the events leading to its construction through the confused and honest eyes of childhood, tethering us as observers into the plight and plague this false society brings through lies and deceit. One thing about the theming in general that intrigues me is that the game takes a more open-minded stance towards neurodivergence, encouraging the experimentation and investigation of joy, the society's happy drug, as a tactical tool for infiltrating and hiding amongst the sheep, so to speak, while simultaneously advising the player of the risks and harm that can come through dependence, overdose, and withdrawal. Similarly, we learn that Percy's view on the world—
Are you wearing clothes?
Yes.
Percy, just a shirt is not clothes.
can radically modify his outlook on the world and state of affairs compared to Arthur's despairing cynicism, offering genuine wisdom and introspection despite the society from before labeling him as slow. It's a decent breakdown of the way collective attitudes reflect on others with different thinking patterns to our own, and by flipping the whole users are losers paradigm on its head, it lets us see the cracks in forced and unified thinking. Of course, the questions the game poses are its strongest point, but there's a video game delivering it all here. So how does it play? I was surprised to find myself landed with a solid and fun action role-playing game, to play somewhere in between Dead Island and the newer Deus Ex games. Whilst earlier builds were lamented for an apparent hyper-focus on survival elements, they're certainly a factor to consider whilst navigating the game's world, but certainly not a roadblock in any way. There is a dependency on crafting, but menus and the crafting mechanic itself are very streamlined and encourage exploration to secret rooms and hidden corners of current areas to get an advantage, rather than to drag yourself through. Combat is solid and fun, if a little janky. There's a stamina meter to contend with, but don't expect Dark Souls level of swordplay here. It's more involved than something like the Elder Scrolls, and as stated before, has a Dead Island feeling of weight and impact. AI is disappointingly stupid in most ways though. Beelining you through combat, immediately forgetting where you are when escaping pursuit, and bumping all over each other as aggravated NPCs accrue angry mobs, just generally bullish behavior not really supported by any smart decision making on the AI's part. This makes stealth sections especially uninvolved and tedious, without any feel of reward from outsmarting a guard or someone hunting you down. Aggravating the NPCs is also incredibly easy to do and frustratingly unintentional most of the time. In towns, the happy folk will beat you to a pulp if you perform any moves outside of walking for too long, accidentally sprint for a second, and everybody wants your blood. This is explained to the player through a set-piece event in which a robotic game show host quizzes you about etiquette, but it's a frustrating set of rules that makes exploring town a chore. There is a perk down the progression tree to have these restrictions lifted, but it's frustrating that I had to use my progression points on something that should just be okay to begin with. Whilst it's interesting to contend with from a narrative point, it never reaches any intended tension as was likely intended, due in part to the aforementioned linear AI. It would have been more effective for this to be a temporary effect that gets remedied with some sort of Deus Ex Machina public perception filter device, and would have at least made more sense than just getting a perk to make it stop. There's a solid video game groundwork to the experience, but there's little in the way of gameplay polish to remedy frustrations whenever they arise. We Happy Few is at its best when it's guiding you along, giving you structure and set pieces, freedom within boundaries. When the leash slacks though, things start to slip apart a little bit. It's a game that's going to have a very critical eye on it due to a large amount of marketing and media coverage, and I honestly don't believe it deserves to be under such a spotlight. It's a perfectly competent game with stellar art direction and a focused and well-written narrative, a very embodiment of a middle shelf sort of game. This doesn't have the production qualities or polish that a AAA title would have just by nature, so going into the game with that attitude isn't going to serve you fantastically. That being said, there's more here to love than to grumble at, so take your joy, look at the sun, and wave. Until next time, this has been Uncle Dub.
Music is my food, baby.
I live off the vibrations. You just have to tune in and you can live forever. Shit, I should have asked for cookies.